Welcome to Flourish in the Foreign, the award-winning podcast that celebrates, elevates, and affirms the voices and stories of Black women living and thriving abroad, while exploring living abroad as a pathway to wellness. I'm your host, Christine Job, a Black American woman with Trinidadian roots, a business strategist and consultant from Atlanta, living and thriving in Valencia, Spain. Hey everyone, welcome to Flourish in the Foreign, or welcome back to my OG listeners. I love y'all. I am, of course, Christine Job, the host and creator of this here podcast. And today I'm kicking off a special limited series of nearly daily, I can't believe it either, nearly daily episodes for the month of October. Each episode will dive into a different theme, a different spooky or scary theme related to life abroad, covering everything from building community to politics of international living and so much more. In today's episode, we're going to take a moment for deep introspection and reflection. We're going to be conducting a post-mortem on your year. Yeah, post-mortem is spookier than just saying we'll be reflecting on this past year, but that's what we're going to be doing. We'll be reflecting on your past year abroad and assessing whether you are just surviving or if you're truly thriving. So let's get into today's episode. As this year comes to a close, it's the perfect time to pause and ask yourself some tough but necessary questions, okay? How has your life abroad really been going, okay? Are you just being abroad, or are you actually flourishing abroad? Are you going through the motions, getting by, surviving, or are you truly living intentionally and thriving? Let's break this down a little bit. Let's figure it out. Now, when I say surviving, I'm talking about doing what you need to do to get by. So perhaps you're financially stable and you've got housing, thank goodness. You're navigating the basic logistics of living abroad, but emotionally, you feel disconnected. You might be struggling to make meaningful connections, feeling lonely, or even a bit lost in this new place. On the flip side, thriving doesn't necessarily mean that it's just parties every day, okay? It's just wine on the terrace every day with the Spanish guitar in the background, all right? No, it means you're living with intention. You found balance in your day-to-day life. You created or you are building community. You're engaged in activities that bring you joy, and you're growing personally and professionally. You wake up excited about what the day holds and you feel at home, not just in your physical surroundings, but within yourself. And how about this? Living abroad can sometimes be somewhat of a roller coaster. So it doesn't necessarily mean just because you moved abroad 6 months ago, you're going to be in survival mode, although that is common. Doesn't mean that necessarily. You can find yourself in seasons of survival 4 years in and 10 years in. I just want you to check in to see, where are you currently right now? Are you just surviving, or are you truly thriving? Here are a few signs you might be stuck in survival mode. And just as a disclaimer, I'm not a psychologist. I only took one class of psychology in college. These are just my assessments from my time abroad and from over 100 episodes and interviews of this podcast. Okay. All right, let's continue. So, the first sign I think that you might want to consider you are stuck in survival mode is that you're struggling to make real, lasting connections. So, maybe you've met people, but the friendships feel superficial and you haven't found your people yet. And I would say that it's important to think about why that might be. I always tell people, one, if you're not from a chocolate city like I am, Atlanta, you may not know that not all skin folk are kinfolk. Okay. You might be drawn to a Black community and you're like, these are going to be my people, and they may not be your people. And that's okay. Or, as I also say, just because you share a language and a nationality does not make you friends with someone. And so maybe you have run to an expat community and you are not finding people that you vibe with. That's totally okay. But if you're struggling to make these like lasting connections, I want you to really think about, where have you been placing yourself? And also, I want you to be aware of, if you are comparing or seeking out a duplicate or maybe even a replacement for your tribe at home, because that would not be good. And that could be why you might not be finding what you think you need abroad. Okay. Your friends are special, unique snowflakes. We don't replace our friends, okay? We just grow our friendship relationships. We grow our friendship family. We're not replacing people. So perhaps you're struggling to make real lasting connections because you're trying to find people like your Chicago crew in Sydney, Australia. You're probably not going to, okay? So let's think about that. Another sign that you might be stuck in survival mode is that you are overwhelmed by the logistics of life abroad. Yeah, things like navigating the visa process can be frustrating, but dealing with that kind of bureaucracy, immigration office, managing the financial aspects of being in a new country, you might be feeling entirely overwhelmed. You might be feeling as if the Facebook groups were not that helpful, or or there was a lot missing from the processes that you're now just discovering. And I would like to say that this is very real. And typically, this feeling of overwhelm with logistics feels fairly intense because you want to be on the right side of law. You want to get things done. And oftentimes, some of these logistics, some of these things that have to get done prevent you from getting other things on your logistics list done. So it's a huge intensity with this. So it's really easy to feel quite overwhelmed about getting an appointment to do this, except the appointments are 5 months out, but you need to do XYZ, and you need this and you need that. That overwhelm is completely normal. And I would also like to offer to you, it is temporary. Like, there will be a time where you don't need to carry copies of your passport, your visa, and whatever else is in your huge documents binder. I know her well. That is definitely probably a reason why you might be feeling like you are surviving and not thriving, because yeah, bureaucracy in different countries, whether or not they have embraced the digital age, whether or not having an appointment really means anything, like you'll be seen at a certain time, these types of things can cause a lot of emotional upheaval for sure. A third sign you might not be doing well and you might be in survival mode is that you just feel emotionally drained. Like, you feel a level of exhaustion that you were not anticipating. And you might even be questioning why you made the move in the first place. Now, if you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, I always tell people one of the reasons it's important to move abroad with intention, a shameless plug, move abroad with intention group coaching is still open and the doors do close October 12th. Definitely join us if you want to. Back to our scheduled program. But one of the reasons why I tell people to move abroad with intention is that moving abroad, most especially if you are not independently wealthy, is a huge hassle to uproot yourself and then attempt to root yourself, not just be someplace, but to root yourself in another place is it's a big deal. It is extremely disruptive. And I think people underestimate how emotionally charged it is and how emotionally draining it is. Past prepping, packing, landing, living, yeah, it can be emotionally draining. And we all expect things to be different, but you're not expecting certain things to be different. Okay. So it can have you question why you made your move in the first place when things go wrong or people tell you no and you're like, wait, no, I can't do this. And then you're spiraling. A word of advice, especially if you're like, I would say this is probably good advice for like warmer climate places. And hey, if I'm wrong, someone correct me. People will tell you no, and really sometimes it means they don't know or maybe. So don't spiral because sometimes people, even people in official capacities, will be like, no. And you'd be like, oh my God, it's the end of the world. And really, it ain't no. It ain't no. That's a word of advice. You got to press them sometimes. But yeah, that whole process is emotionally draining and may have you questioning yourself. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying this episode of Flourish in the Foreign. And if you are, be sure to share this episode and, of course, support this podcast. You can do so by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/flourishforeign and leaving me a nice note. I love when you guys leave me notes like that. It makes me feel so nice. You can also support this podcast by leaving a review of this podcast on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Fun fact, Spotify now gives me the option to respond to your comments. So if you listen to this podcast on Spotify, you can leave comments, suggestions underneath each episode, and I can respond to you, which is really cool. It's a little bit more interactive that way. So be sure to do that. Also, make sure that if working with me in the Move Abroad with Intention coaching program is a priority for you, make sure that you get in contact, okay? Yes, do that. And if you're interested in starting your own business, check out my free training from marketable skill to business and get started today. All right, let's get back to this episode. So, a fourth sign that you may be stuck in survival mode is that physically you just feel more tired than usual and you're just not really motivated to be up and out, and everything feels like it's harder than it should be. And this can be for a number of reasons, right? You've gotten rid of your car and now you live somewhere that's a walkable city and you're like, yeah, you're walking everywhere. And perhaps you have a walk up apartment. And, if you're here in Europe, the first floor is not the ground floor, that's zero. So you may be walking up flights of stairs and your body may just need to calibrate to this new exertion of energy. Maybe you're not eating enough as well because you're on a fifth floor walk up. And once you walked up this one time this morning, you are not going back down for food. And I have to tell you, yes, get off your couch, go get you some food or order in or order your groceries. Okay. Or you might not want to be out and about because, like I said previously, You expected things to be different, but you weren't expecting everything to be different. And it's hard to know that and even to admit it because it sounds silly. But some of those expectations that you had about where things would be in a city or even in a grocery store, that was a big thing when I moved to Spain. Very accustomed to one-stop shopping. And I was like, okay, in Atlanta, this would be in Kroger. And so I would go places and ask in Mercadona, where is this thing? And they would look at me like I'm dumb. And they'd be like, we don't have that here. And I'd be like, where can I find it? Like, I don't know, you know? And so it feels like everything is harder than it should be. Maybe you're still trying to learn the language. So you're just like, I got to leave my house, go down these 5 flight of stairs, walk around this city, try to communicate. Hopefully people can understand my accent, and then be looked at like I'm crazy for asking very simple questions. And people are like, what do you mean? That's so stupid. So if that is you right now and you're kind of ruminating in that, that could be a sign that you're stuck in survival mode. Now, what are the signs that you might be thriving? Let's go to those. You might be thriving if one, you've built or you are actively building a strong community of like-minded, similarly minded, aligned-minded, I don't know if that's a word, of individuals. You found your people and you feel supported and connected. You found people that you that like you too, and you're enjoying building relationships. That could be a sign of thriving for sure. But notice how I said actively building. Like you've got to be an active participant in this. There are very few situations in which you're going to walk into a community because community is symbiotic and requires reciprocity. So there might be a community established and you know someone and you're ushered in, but to reap the full benefits of community, you still have to cultivate relationships with the members of the community. You know what I'm saying? Okay. A second sign that you are thriving abroad is that you've created a balanced life for yourself with time for work, play, and self care. And you're not just running from task to task, and you're really taking time to enjoy your surroundings and invest in your well being. And you might be saying, Christine, isn't that just everywhere except for the US and like maybe the UK? And I'm like, no, because you know why? Because everywhere you go, you take yourself. That's why, babe. Yeah. If you haven't heard my story of moving abroad, and perhaps I should do an update. We'll see. That's season 1, episode 10. And I tell my story of when I moved to Spain in 2017 and I was living in wine country in La Rioja here in Spain. I was working 12 hours a week. Yeah, a week. And I had long, lushy lunches with my friends. And I still was not great. I was still quite anxious and still kind of floating. And so I really had to understand and create this balanced life for myself. One, I had to reframe and redefine success on my own terms. And also, I had to go through the process, and I think I'm still going through it, to be honest, 7 years in, of deprogramming myself from a very fast paced American lifestyle, work and personal style, where things are just kind of pushed and crammed in. Okay. Just because you move to a place that doesn't have a phrase for work-life balance in their language, because they're like, what are you talking about? Doesn't mean you are going to naturally and automatically just slip on in and just get it. Like, no. If you listen to many of my guests over the years, they have struggled with that. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking about Jesse in Strasbourg, season 1, episode, I think in the 20s, I think. And she talks about how in France, they take off either all of July or August, depending on I guess, like their family lifestyle. And they really don't work. Okay. And so when she was vacationing with her husband and her in laws, they were like, no, no work. And she was like, yeah, I just want to write down this idea. And they were like, no, okay. It doesn't come naturally. You have to create that. You have to be an active participant in cultivating that. You have to create boundaries. Dun, 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 not for everybody else, but for you. Yeah. So the third sign that you are thriving abroad might be you feel like you're growing, whether that's in your career or your personal life or your mindset. You're just making progress and you're excited about what's ahead. Like you feel yourself either unbecoming, letting go of some things, of identities, of expectations, of labels, and perhaps you feel yourself becoming more of yourself. And that's something that you have to be honest with yourself. Do you feel that growth happening? Because you could just be abroad, all right? You could just be abroad. That doesn't mean that anything else is happening, all right? And the fourth sign that you actually could be thriving abroad is that you feel contentment and joy. There's a spark in you that reminds you why you chose this life abroad in the first place. And look, not every day is going to be unicorns and rainbows and like, yeah, I love it here. But overall, the sentiment you feel, even through the bureaucracy and immigration and nonsense, you feel content and you have these, I would say, you would have lots of moments of joy, of deep, resonant joy that makes you feel like, damn, I'm happy I'm here. Wow. I'm happy that I've created this life for myself. Okay. That that might mean that you're thriving abroad. But again, I'm not a therapist or a mental health professional. Okay. So if you find yourself more on the survival side of things, I think that's okay. I think that living abroad is a roller coaster. So sometimes you do and sometimes you won't. But most importantly, I think this is an opportunity for you to reflect and to reset. And one of the best ways to start is by journaling. Yeah. People that have worked with me, either as a business development strategist or in Move Abroad with Intention or any other kind of capacity, know that I love giving a journal prompt. I love being like, you know what you need to do? Write about your feelings. That's what you need to do. I really do. And you know what? It works. It works. So I really do. I think I prescribe it because it forces you to slow down and really process what's going on in your mind and heart. And also there's the privacy of it's just between you and the paper. So what are you going to do? Lie to yourself? I mean, you could, but this is where a therapist should be stepping in at this point because I don't know what else to tell you. I'm just giving you the side eye. So, here are a few prompts that I would like you to consider. Take the ones that resonate, leave the ones that don't. Pause the podcast, pull out your journal, and get to writing. Yeah. And share if you like or don't. So, the first one is, am I happy with where I am right now? Yeah, I started with an easy one. Let's just get down to it. Am I happy with where I am right now? And if we extend it, yes. Why? And from that why, how much of that happiness is based in external factors? And what are those? And how much of those are based on internal factors? And what are those? Now, if that answer is no, well, then I'm going to ask you, well, why not? And I want you to think about that deeply. And I want you to consider how much of that unhappiness is based upon external factors and how much of that unhappiness is based on internal factors. Okay. Another prompt I'd like you to consider is, what are the things that are bringing me joy right now? What are the things that are bringing me joy right now? Perhaps it is watching Love Island or Married at First Sight or some other reality TV show. I don't know. Or perhaps it's having the space to go to Pilates at 10 a.m. or seeing your friends for lunch every day, or having more money to save up or to invest, or perhaps to be able to purchase an apartment in cash, and maybe you weren't going to be able to do that before. Or perhaps it's just like, you know, I live someplace that now has all these amazing dog parks for my dog. And that brings me joy to see my dog hopping along with the floppy ears, you know? What are the things that are currently bringing you joy? Write those down. And I want real joy too, like things that actually make you feel warm inside and smile, not whatever kind of lame thing that you thought you were going to write down. I want actual joy. Another prompt that I'd like you to consider is what feels heavy or draining? What feels heavy or draining? And then to extend it, I'd like you to consider from the things that feel heavy, are they mine? Are the things that are feeling heavy and weighing on you? I want you to look in your basket and say, how much of this is even my stuff? And then take that even further and say, what would happen if I put down slash gave back these heavy things that are not mine? And from the things that feel draining, let's extend that as well and consider, where are there leaks in my life? Like, where am I leaking? And from those leaks, how can I attempt to stop those leaks? Are those leaks a matter of me turning off a faucet, or is it a matter of me plugging some type of hole? You know what I'm saying? Consider that. Okay. And the last prompt for you is, what do I want my life to look like in the next year? What do I want my life to look like in the next year? Let's extend it. How do I want my life to feel in the next year? All right. Because when you say, what do I want my life to look like? Um, I'm always fearful that people go for like IG reels, which are literally highlight reels. So it doesn't need to look sexy in that way, if that's not important to you. It doesn't need to look glossy and ready for a photo shoot if that's not really important to you, if that's not going to nourish you. And that's why I ask, how do you want it to feel? Because that's more important, not external validation and people feeling like, ooh, you really living that life, you that girl. Because y'all have to know, I don't even be on social media like that. I still have some people that I kind of know from way back when. They'd be like, are you still in Spain? Because you never post about being in Spain. Because, baby, I don't live here for you. I don't live here to show you what I'm eating. I'm not that type of content creator. So, like, I'm not here to show you my house, my friend's cool house. My friends actually surprised me in August and for my birthday, and my birthday is not in August, it's in January. That's a long story. They surprised me with a boat party. Yeah. And you know what? You'd have to be there to know that. So my life looks a certain kind of way to me, and perhaps I'll share maybe a little bit edited for everyone else. Recognize I said, and I admit it will be edited for public consumption, but my life feels wonderful. My life feels very rooted and very cozy. I have an awesome community. I have great friends, not just even locally, but here, all around the world. I feel loved. I feel respected. I feel like people really fuck with your girl. Excuse my language. Like I feel good. And that's for me. That's not for you. You may not have known that until I told you that. So I want you to think about that, right? I want you to take that to heart about how you want your life to feel for you. But I just want you to know that these questions are just a starting point for this scary and spooky postmortem. But they can help you get clarity on where you are and what you need to change to go from surviving to thriving. Okay. So I want you to take some time today or this week to sit with these questions, reflect on your journey, celebrate if you're thriving, if you feel like you're just about surviving, use this moment to realign with your goals and to make a plan for moving forward. Okay. And if you're looking for more support, definitely check out my Move Abroad with Intention group coaching program, the final, but also only group coaching cohort I have offered this year. It's true. In the program, we just go way deeper into these reflections and strategies to help you cultivate the life you want abroad. Okay. Doors close October 12th, and I would love to see you. It's always going to be a small and intimate and cozy cohort. So get off the fence and join me today. Be sure to learn all about the Move Abroad with Intention group coaching program at flourishintheforeign.com/MAI-course. As always, big thanks to Zachary Higgs for producing the music of this here podcast. And remember, it is not about moving abroad, and it can't be about just being abroad, surviving. It's about thriving abroad. It's about flourishing abroad. So go abroad and cultivate a life well lived. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.